In this final chapter, we're going to take a look at workflow, how to actually light and render a scene. Now we have a basic interior scene which we will be lighting. Now I have some ambient occlusion already set up so we can just take a quick look at this scene. So I'm going to go down here in this bottom viewport here and just turn it to rendered. And this will go ahead and start rendering that viewport. And you can see we've got a basic dining room scene with that table and the bowl of fruit that we were working with before, along with some other furniture, a window, and a whole environment. Let's go ahead through our render settings and make sure that they're exactly the way that we want. So in order to set up the scene, we want to make sure we click on the Render Settings tab, and let's go through some of this. First thing we need to do is make sure that we have the dimensions of the final image that we want. By default, it's set to HD 1080p, but for the sake of faster rendering, actually I'm going to turn this down to 720p, so that's going to be 1280 by 720. Now, which directory do you want to output your final animation to? And I'll let you decide that. Sampling. Initially, let's go ahead and leave the sampling at 10 for preview, but for render, maybe we should turn this up to say about 200, which will give us a much higher quality rendering. Now, we may change that depending upon how our final render goes. And then for light paths, we should set up a proper illumination model for our scene. And in this case, I'm going to select full global illumination, which will go ahead and set all of this transparency and bounces to the proper amounts. Now finally, we have stuff for performance. I'm going to leave that at the default, which is auto-detect how many threads I have on my CPU, the size of the tile, and all that stuff. And we're not going to be working with layers in this at all. So there's our settings. Now, once we have that set up, it's time to start adding the cameras and lights to your scene.